Thanks, Jarmo. Thanks, Justina. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harri Kiljander from Alpha Design Partners, the product design and design operations development firm in Helsinki. And like my Estonian friend sometimes keeps on reminding me, Helsinki is the northernmost suburb of Tallinn, so it's pretty close. So today I'll talk about how design creates business impact and why sometimes it doesn't. I also tell about how to measure the design maturity and how to improve the design maturity for greater business impact in your organizations. And since I'm the last presenter before the party, I thought maybe I can be a bit provocative, because then we will be having better discussions at the after party. So I'll start this with some provocation, and I claim that most large organizations, they don't fail because of bad user experience. In many contexts, it's good enough to have good enough UX. You can run okay business with it. Yeah, maybe someone will have their fancy AI solutions to run over you, but still you can do good enough business. These organizations, they can fail because design is structurally prevented from influencing the strategy. So if you're working in a large organization, and maybe some of you are working in large organizations. In large organizations, things take place at the different phase or pace in different parts of the organization. There's different cycles. So some things take place in the upstream, like strategy work. Some things take place in the downstream, like execution, like tactical things. And if you are treating design work in your organization, in your company, like the downstream activity, then you are missing a great opportunity. And I'm trying to provoke you a bit to understand that, hey, maybe you could grasp this opportunity. And there's been several presentations already today discussing roughly the same topic, and that's a good thing. So I built this talk for the people in the bucket. Marci, already, you did a great job kind of classifying people into different buckets. You have the bucket for designers, you have the bucket for the business people, and then the mysterious others. So you, in the business bucket, you are the executives. You set the strategy and the kind of the direction for the organization. And then there's you who are the product and business leaders. You set the priorities for your business or for your product. And then there's probably some transformation people, transformation leaders. Are there? Raise your hand if you are working on something called, yes, there's one and a half. So transformation leaders, you are building the operating system for your company, and then the company hopefully runs by that operating system. And this is basically, I'm trying to talk to you in the audience. So you, designers, kind of you are the expert when it comes to design, but this is not a design methods talk. I'm not going to talk about yet another triple diamond. I'm not going to talk about any fancy AI augmented Figma workflows either. And I'm not going to talk about sustainable design, because Justina already spoke about that in a great way. So design professionals, you guys know these design things already. I'm trying to talk about from the business angle to the business decision makers and the business leaders, because you people who make the business decisions, it's up to you to decide whether you want to tap into this opportunity. Use the designers in your organization to elevate your business to the next level. So complex organizations, and what I mean by complex, a complex organization, well, when I left Nokia, we had roughly a bit over 100,000 employees all over the planet. So that was quite complex. Swedbank this morning, we learned you have 17,000 people, and I think that's quite complex already. So complex organizations, they have multiple businesses, they have multiple customer segments, They have multiple services, multiple products, multiple teams, multiple sites. They work across multiple time zones. There's multiple cultures working inside those organizations. And these wonderful companies who are super complex, they tend to love making strategies every year. Sometimes they revise the strategy every quarter. And everyone who's been working in a big company and working in a strategy team knows that it's actually pretty easy to make these wonderful strategies. The difficult part comes when you try to execute those strategies. So the strategy is only as good as its execution. But the execution is only as good as the decisions you make and the follow-up you take. And that's where the hard part comes in. And I would claim that the decisions in a big, complex organization, they are only as good as your customer insight. So if you don't know your customers, your decisions are probably going to go off, at least a bit. So design, by default, it sits at that intersection. Or it could sit if you, business deciders, allow it to sit in that intersection. It's up to you. Slight personal reflection over my 30 years in UX, in product and design leadership. Well, I started before UX was invented. I started to make computer graphics in the late 1980s. Wow, that's a long time ago. I started at Nokia as an interaction designer, and thanks Justina for kind of listing the titles. I was an interaction designer in the mid-1990s. And before UX was invented, we wrote the world's first textbook on mobile usability in 2003. And then I was leading some design teams at Nokia. Then came Microsoft. Then things started to go in different directions. I left the company. I moved to the cybersecurity company called F-Secure in Helsinki, leading product and brand design for 9 years. Meanwhile, I had some side hustles, helping some friends with their startups. I became design advisor to some startups. I'm still helping some of them. And then after 9 years at F-Secure, I joined Musician, the music learning product company, who have, I think, a bit over 200 million downloads for their apps in the app stores. I was leading product, brand, and marketing design at Musician. Then came the pandemic, and we came up with the idea that let's set up a design firm that does things a bit differently. So we do the standard stuff, product, UX, UI, service, brand design. But then we have a thing that sets apart. We help other companies, we help our customers become better in doing design. So we do design operations development. In a way, we try to cannibalize our own design project business by helping our customers become better. And I've seen design succeed, I've seen design fail at scale, and now I'm trying to help other companies avoid those failures. And my path towards this design operations, it started somewhere in the mid-2000s. At Nokia, we realized at that time that we need to start to take a radically different approach to the way we develop software for mobile devices. And at the same time, there was a movement going on called Agile. 2001, there were 17 super smart software thinkers. They got together in Utah, Snowbird, and they wrote something called the Agile Manifesto. And actually, last week, it turned 25 years old. And one of the original founding fathers, Alistair Cockburn, he's actually on this poster here. He was running an online celebration Q&A last week. And I got to know Alistair somewhere in the mid-2000s. I had a task to build a large new design team at Nokia for one of the new Linux-based smartphones. And Alistair was helping us to revise the ways software was being developed. And I was grumbling to Alistair that, hey, you guys, if you are so smart and you came up with this Agile Manifesto, why did you forget design completely? And then he said that, yeah, maybe that's true. And then we had some workshops and discussions, and we came up with something we decided to call the Manifesto for Agile UX Design. And this was in 2007, and it's kind of weird to see your own slides from 19 years ago. And actually I can see progress, because 19 years ago slides were 4:3, that's the ratio, and now today's slides are 16:9, so there is some progress. In the Manifesto for Agile UX Design, it wasn't about design wireframes. It was about collaboration, it was about structure, it was about architecture, it was about continuous discovery. So kind of like the basic foundational building blocks, how you should do design in an agile way, in an agile environment. And if I'm now in 2026, looking at the situation, where do we stand 19 years later? These principles we kind of stated 19 years ago. Instead of handoffs, this designer-developer collaboration should be active, so that you don't work in separate silos and then throw the designs to the developers and hope that something wonderful comes out. And what we had learned, that when we were trying to communicate with some really kind of technically minded people or technology thinkers, it made sense to use architecture work like a metaphor for, or analog for, design work. So approaching design like architecture instead of approaching design as decoration. And then we had the idea that if you establish a continuous discovery and feedback gathering progress or process, it makes a lot more sense than trying to do some last-minute usability testing for your prototype and then hope that there is some imaginary time to make the fixes. The sad thing is that now that I've been working with a number of companies over the last 5 years in this design firm, after all these 19 years, many organizations, they still violate these all. I'm not sure how it is going in your organizations. I hope things are all super nice and dandy, but maybe there's some room for improvement when it comes to like the designer to developer collaboration, and I have some case studies coming up shortly. So what I call this is the design theater. So in a way, you have designers, you have a design team in the organization, but somehow you are not really doing human-centered design. You are treating the designers like the last-minute beautifiers. So the output, it may be beautiful, but it really has a low impact on business, and you are not really solving the target end users' problems either. Design systems, we are seeing and hearing them to be the almost like the holy grail. But in quite so many organizations, there's also, we've seen a situation where the design team is building and maintaining a design system or component library, you can call it with many names, and they are working in isolation, and then when the design is handed over to the developers, they don't have any sort of a sync with the design system, so they start building their UI components in code separately. So there's duplicate work and there's off-sync incidents. And then what we are seeing is that in some companies it's great, they are using some design metrics. Some companies are not using design metrics, they should. But even in the companies who are using design metrics, it's not obvious that the design metrics have any sort of linkage with the business KPIs. So if you're using something, if you're using a mechanism like objectives and key results in your company, please do ensure that they propagate also to the design team, so that the design team is not working in isolation. And something now, what we've started to see last year is that some kind of a really technologically minded companies, they now got the idea that, hey, they can expedite the software development in the organization by letting the smartest AI-minded people to use AI tools to help coding developing the software. And then some really smart developer comes up with the idea that, hey, since I'm now doing part of the software development with these AI tools, I can do the UI as well, just kind of handling some super simple prompts. And we actually right now, we have a customer who did this last year, and now early this year, they called us for help to clean up the mess. And it's an interesting situation. So in all these situations, the design theater, design, it may be visible, but it's not influential. So design, it becomes a strategic lever when it shapes the upstream decisions, not only the downstream beautification, enables faster organizational learning, and is managed as a measurable leadership capability. When you measure something, you can manage it. And then design no longer is or becomes just a department somewhere in your org chart, or a phase in your product development process, or a vague feeling you or someone on the C-level has, something that cannot be measured. Yes. And some case studies, I'll go through these pretty quickly. Some of the companies we have been helping quite recently with our design operations toolbox. This is a B2B heavy industry solutions company. Their revenue roughly 5 billion. And they knew already that their problem in the design organization was a lack of reliable customer insight. There was a sentiment in the organization that it takes too much time to conduct customer research, and the sales teams already know so well what the customers want. We don't need to do any customer research. There were also some sales teams who were scared of the idea that designers might go and talk to the real users, to the real customers, because then something might go wrong. They had already there were agreements made between the customers and the sales reps, and they were afraid that designers could somehow confuse the customers so that they would not be signing the next orders. So what we did, we helped the in-house design team to productize customer research. In a way, we did not introduce customer research or research in the organization. We helped to productize the learning inside the organization. When it was productized into sprints, it was easier for the designers to sell the idea internally to the customer teams who were responsible of certain parts of the business and certain products. And at the same time, we were able to tap into some insights gathered already elsewhere in the organization, kind of indirect customer insights. So we helped to build a tool for the designers to access the data that was already existing. And this is a multi-billion euros online services company, and we did a larger design operations development project with them. And after all the interviews of designers and design stakeholders, we found out together with their team that the biggest problem was around the design system operations inside the organization. They had already gone through the phase where multiple kind of competing separate design systems and component libraries had been kind of integrated into one company level design system, but it was not being used across the organization. And the governance model for the design system was not really helping it to scale either. So we helped them to fix the governance around the design system by moving the design system team to a more appropriate location inside the organization. Then we learned that they had already been developing a kind of a design principles as the underlying foundation for the design system, and we helped them to revitalize that design principles development work. And then we helped them to develop a plan to roll out the design system across the different product teams in the organization. And this is a 1 billion euro IoT systems and software product company with a really nice company culture. Their challenge was that the design team was highly egalitarian, really flat organization that had been born decades ago and growing gradually. There were super well thought and designed design rituals, daily, weekly, monthly. They were in place, working like a clockwork. The challenge was that the clock was running too slow. And designers were feeling there's a lack of career development options for them, and the head of design was overloaded because it was a completely flat organization. And the business managers had no clear visibility into design work. So we helped them to redesign the organization, the structure, so that instead of the flat organization, we introduced kind of a domain design cells led by recognized design leads. And this introducing the lead designers helped offload decision-making bottlenecks, and this offered also growth paths for designers. And we improved visibility into the design priorities for design or business stakeholders. And then there's a smaller B2B SaaS product company, roughly 20 million revenue, and their challenge, they knew it already, that the UX to agile handoff, it was not broken, it had never been defined. Developers were using or following the scaled agile framework model, and the small UX design team was drifting alone. And they had started to develop a design system at some point, but they kind of had lost hope or support and or sponsorship. Then we had some deep soul-searching discussions, and they are super sensible people across the organization. We came up with the idea that let's build this new way of working operation model around the design system, and now we are helping them to kind of re-energize the design system operations in the company and integrate the designers to the software development organization. So what's common in these organizations? None of them were asking for smarter design tools or better designers. They needed support with how design is organized, led, and justified. That was what they needed. And we've helped ourselves to help ourselves to help our customers. We have built a design maturity framework over the last couple of years, taking using the experiences our core team has from working in different organizations, building and leading design teams, and we've taken some learnings from the existing design maturity models like the Danish design ladder and the Envision solar system that I think no longer exists. So we built a design maturity framework across the 6 dimensions of design goals and strategy: customer focus, user centricity, design team and designers, design work processes, design collaboration with stakeholders, and design impact. And now I'll show this, and you should not read this. You'll find this in our blog. You can come to me and let's have a discussion or a call. The idea here is that the one thing you should take from this is that design maturity is not about aesthetics. Yes, you can see aesthetics mentioned in the bottom left corner where everything usually starts. But the idea with the design maturity is decision making and the learning capability in the organization. And how we use this, we basically interview all the designers, design stakeholders, product managers, engineering managers, front-end developers in the organization, trying to understand where the problem areas reside. We analyze these insights. We prepare an initial maturity level-up plan. We engage the designers and the decision makers. And since the analysis and the development plan production, it takes some time. We've built a Gen AI tool for that purpose, and that helps us to run that phase maybe roughly about 50 times faster. I wouldn't want to let an AI, for example, do the interviews. I wouldn't trust any AI to do that. You need the kind of a human experience with that. This is something we are doing with these big companies who already know that kind of something is wrong in their design operations and they want to improve it for greater business impact. So design maturity, it is measurable, it's not just inspirational. And the way design maturity, it manifests itself in its better decisions, it's less rework, and it's greater and faster learning capability in the organization. Influencing upstream strategy at higher maturity when design sits at the decision tables. One key thing is to link the design metrics to your business KPIs, revenue, risk, and cost, and plan and govern design like architecture. And if design creates no measurable business impact in your organization, it's not the design problem, it's a leadership problem, it's a structural problem, it's a governance problem. Don't blame your designers. Blame the business decision makers. And to conclude, 3 uncomfortable, provocative questions to you before the after party for you to take back to your organizations. Where does design influence strategy in your organizations today? And really, does it really influence strategy in your organizations? And who owns the design decisions when trade-offs get hard? Is it the design lead? Is it the CTO? Is it the engineering manager? Is it HR? Is it someone else? And what business outcome would improve if you were able to improve the design maturity 1 level or 2 levels in the organization? Would it move the needle somehow? Should it move the needle? So to conclude, design, it doesn't replace strategy, but it can multiply strategy when leaders allow it to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Harri, for giving us good discussion topics for the evening. But we do also have some questions online.
Brilliant.
So one of those is, what is the costliest design team malfunction that companies should avoid at all costs?
I would say the costliest, obviously, you hire brilliant designers into your organization and then you don't let them do their work. Maybe they don't know yet how to speak the business language, but the skills they have, the tools they have in their toolbox, you should definitely utilize them in the upstream work. When the designers are doing their discovery work, utilize those insights when you are building the strategy for your company. That's the costliest. You hire designers, you don't let them do their work.
All right, but from a different angle, what about a completely self-managed product teams following principles like holacracy? Is it a benefit or a trap for UX designers and researchers?
Do we mean that there's no designers at all?
Or the product teams are self-managed and designers are kind of incorporated there?
I think designers, it's definitely a good thing to incorporate designers in the product teams. Designers should not be separate. I guess someone was saying earlier today that they have tried all the possible ways to organize design in a big organization. I think I've done the same. And in a big organization, what I have learned is that it's better to have a centralized design team and then allocate designers to different businesses and different product teams, but to have some sort of a backbone where they can work together, where the shared design system can be built and experiences can be shared, but then allocate those designers to the product teams. I think that's definitely the way to go.
And have you had a chance to witness the impact of the annual costs while having a fragmented design system or no design system at all in companies at different sizes?
Yes, we are helping some companies right now who are in a situation where a part of the company has some sort of a design system. Well, it's a component library, but they want to call it the design system, and that's fine. And then some other parts of the company don't have anything, and then there is you have individual designers, you have individual developers who are developing components and kind of screaming for help that, hey, please, could someone now make a decision that this is the set of components we should be using and this is the set of rules we should be following. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your talk. And you can ask more questions later on because soon we'll have our after party. Give it up for Harri.